On episode 695 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet James Swanwick and discuss his book, Clear, the only neuroscience-based method for high achievers to quit drinking without willpower or rehab. Welcome to the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, the largest and longest running health and fitness podcast dedicated to people over 40. Whether you're looking to lose weight, get stronger, or improve your health and age better, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Coach Allan, an online health and fitness coach and author of the Wellness Roadmap. Each week, we dive into practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and fitness. If you're ready to look, feel, and perform your best, no matter your age, this podcast is the perfect place to start. Let's get you on the path to a healthier, fitter, and more energetic version of yourself. I hope you'll join us each week, and together we can unlock your full potential. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast. I'm really excited you're here, and today we're going to talk to James Swanwick about alcohol and quitting alcohol. So if you've been interested in trying to cut back on your alcohol or quit alcohol, you know it's slowing you down, you know it's a problem. This is a great episode and a good book. So I'm glad you're here, and I hope you do enjoy it. I wanted to tell you and or remind you that we do have a Facebook group. If you go to 40plusfitness.com/group, you can join the group. It's pretty cool because I share videos from the interview, so you actually get to see what some of these folks look like on the interview that you don't get to when you're in audio. I share some background stuff and other things. I post in there regularly some information, some learning, some teachings, things like that. But it's just a really cool place to interact, talk about things. If you have questions, that's an awesome way to get in touch with me. I'm on there regularly. So you can go to 40plusfitness.com/group. Join us on the Facebook group. Now, I'm back in Bocas for a minute. I've basically been trying to take care of my mother's estate in the United States. I spent about 6 weeks at the beginning of the year getting things done. Didn't get nearly as much done as I thought I would. Came back here for a little while to take care of some things, and then went back for another 6 week stint. Again, fighting the government, trying to get things done. Nothing goes as fast as you want. Nothing goes as smooth as you expect. So it's been a bit of a challenge. And so I didn't quite get everything done. I'm back in Bocas. I'm glad. I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. Relax, enjoy myself, take in the great weather, the beautiful nature, and everything that Bocas has to offer. And then, 3 weeks from now, I've got to go back. I'll be back in the States for probably about 6 to 8 weeks, but not all of it is going to be trying to get the estate settled. My family's having a family reunion, so I'm going to be able to attend that. My wife's going to come up for that, and then we're going to head over to where my daughter is to welcome our first grandchild to the world. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm really looking forward to that experience. And I'll be there for that. Probably post some pictures on the Facebook group I told you about a few minutes ago. So 40plusfitness.com/group if you want to see a little bit about that. But again, really excited to be up there, try to get some things done, get most of it closed out at this point, I hope. I do hope. I've been working hard on trying to get it done, but it's like, things are what they are. But I'm back, and I'm going to enjoy myself here for a while. All right, so let's move on and have this conversation with James Swanwick. Our guest today is an Australian-American celebrity interviewer, TV and radio host, and has interviewed world leaders and celebrities including Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jennifer Aniston, Hugh Hefner, and Al Gore. He is a former ESPN anchor on SportsCenter and author of The Insider Journalism Secrets, Celebrity Confessions, and 20 life-changing books. He also hosts the Alpha Male Club podcast. With no further ado, here's James Swanwick. James, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Alan, thank you very much for having me.
So I was following you well before the Blue Blocker company thing that you founded, which I thought again back then was fascinating because being an online, I've worked online my almost my whole life. If you think about it, I had computers for my very first professional job. They were amber screens back then, probably not so bad as the blue light we have today, but I've been on a computer probably pretty much every day of my life for now going on 35 years. So it was fascinating back then that this blue light could be causing me that much trouble. But now you're diving into a topic, or you've been doing this for years, but we're diving into a topic that has also been something that's followed me as an adult along the way. And the book is called Clear, the only neuroscience-based method for high achievers to quit drinking without willpower, rehab, or A&A. And I think what I really liked about this book is there's a lot of books coming out now about alcohol, and a lot of them are prefacing as saying, well, there is a safe level, and there is you can have drinks, and if it's not a problem, it's not a problem. They sort of almost apologize for it. It's like, I don't want to tell you not to drink. And this book was a little different.
Yeah, the cultural conditioning out there is that drinking is normal and not drinking is abnormal. In fact, alcohol is the only drug where you have to justify not consuming it. It's crazy and preposterous to me, but that's the way it is. That's the way cultural conditioning is. And it started when we were little boys and little girls, and the adult figures in our life may have been a parent, uh, said, "Oh, no, no, little Allan, no, no, little James or Sally, you can't drink now. You can drink when you're older." And in that moment, that adult figure implanted the idea that alcohol was something worthy of an adult, that it's a rite of passage, that it's something we get to do when we're older. When the truth is, our first taste of alcohol tasted foul, didn't it? It was like, I remember having brandy that my father gave me and I spat it out and went, "Ooh, that's disgusting." But that shows up later on in our teens when all of a sudden there are smiling assassins everywhere. And a smiling assassin is someone who's smiling as they offer us a drink. It's the waiter or the waitress, it's our friends, it's our family, and they're saying, "Hey, would you like a drink? Hey, let's catch up for some drinks. Hey, can I get you a drink?" And it's just perpetuated this notion that we should bow down and worship at the altar of alcohol. But the reality is that alcohol is nothing but attractively packaged poison. And we're walking around thinking that it's necessary to create friendships and connection and romance and celebration and stress relief. But the reality is that it's keeping us stressed, it's keeping us anxious, and it causes a lot of challenges to our health and to our families.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like you sit down at a table for dinner, and they don't walk up to you and say, "What would you like to eat?" They're gonna take your drink order first.
Yeah.
Part of
And
that is because that's where all the profit's buried in a restaurant. But the other side of it is it's just such a norm to get you that first drink. Take a little while to cook your meal. You're gonna probably have your second drink with your meal, and in many cases, then the third, fourth, dessert, fifth. You know,
yeah, I mean, the waiter and waitress are the best smiling assassins of all because they come up and they say, "Oh, hello there, Mr. James, Mr. Allan, so great to have you here. Can I get you started with a drink?" Now, what they're essentially saying is, "Can I get you started with a night of compromised sleep? Can I get you started with 10 pounds of unwanted body fat? Can I get you some stress, anxiety, maybe some regret in the morning?" And they're doing it with a big smile on their face because make no mistake, this poison, which we put in a very fancy bottle, disrupts our sleep, creates more stress, creates more anxiety, creates irritability, and that can show up as being a little bit snappy with our wife or husband, not being present with our children, not having as much self confidence because we're carrying unwanted body weight. Our skin gets weathered and tired. And so we're not as attractive looking the way that nature maybe intended us to look, and so on and so on.
yeah. In all fairness, it also adds $2 to $3 to their tip. So they're not just doing it because they don't like you. They there's there's an incentive for them to make that off. Because I remember I used to use, you've been to Austin, I know, and I used to wait tables at a place called the Oasis over Lake Travis, and they had the perfect margarita. The perfect margarita was also perfect for the waiter because it was right at $9.50. And so it was right at that line of, okay, this is a high tier drink, and it's not like super overpriced like you would have in a, New York or Los Angeles. And so you'd offer this drink, and but it would add $10 to their tab, which you knew with a good 15-20% tip is a buck 50, $2 in your pocket for every one of those you pushed. So we effectively became pushers of poison without even knowing it, because we liked them too. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you were a great smiling assassin, it sounds like, back in
I,
the
I
day,
I was I'm sorry.
Alan. There are some poison peddlers today, which I kind of shake my head at a little bit. I'm not sure what your view is on this, but there are these Hollywood celebrities like George Clooney, Ryan Reynolds, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and all three of those men have done great things in society. Like they're very um, charitable, they're funny, they're outstanding in their field of expertise. They've helped a lot of people by putting a lot of positive energy out into the world, and yet they are poison peddlers because each of those Hollywood celebrities that I just referenced own a liquor company.
Yeah.
So Ryan Reynolds has got Aviation Gin, and George Clooney and Randy Gerber actually sold their drink, their tequila company, to a company for $1 billion. And then Dwayne The Rock Johnson also has a tequila company. And like I think in 20, 30 years, we're going to look back on alcohol with the same level of disdain we currently do cigarettes. And I don't think history is going to be particularly kind to these Hollywood celebrities who are peddling their poison. Right now, it's socially acceptable, even though there's a cultural shift. But I think in 20 years, we'll look back and go, wow, that was crazy.
Well, it's the same thing with the doctors. Nine out of 10 doctors prefer, Pall Mall. It's going to
Mm.
be that thing. I think you're right. I don't know that they'll name specific people at that point, but they'll definitely be a thing of why was this a thing? And I think a lot of that is, we think about alcoholism, the word alcoholism, and it's this huge stigma. And so you're either, the concept is you're either an alcoholic because you don't have control of your drinking, or you're not because you do or you think you do. But there's another phrase that's being used now, I guess, to, I'm not going to say it's softening it, but it's just acknowledging that this is not just a on or off or a line that you cross. There's a spectrum. And you called it alcohol use disorder. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I write about this in the first chapter of my book, actually, where I put forward the facts, which are modern modern medicine no longer actually use the phrase alcoholic or alcoholism. It doesn't exist in modern medical literature. The new term is alcohol use disorder. Now you might say, well, it's just a change of word. What's the significance? Well, everything, because there are people walking around, millions of people walking around mistakenly believing that they are an alcoholic simply because they drink too much. Whereas the phrase alcohol use disorder implies that it's a temporary disorder. It's like temporarily you're drinking too much and we can change that. Whereas I'm an alcoholic or you're an alcoholic or I'm experiencing alcoholism is very much rigid in an identity. It's like I'm either an alcoholic or I'm not an alcoholic. So I don't feel, based on my research, that calling yourself an alcoholic or doing what Alcoholics Anonymous submits that you do, which is surrendering to a higher power and saying that you're powerless over some disease, is effective. I think it's incredibly ineffective based on my 10 years of research. Whereas alcohol use disorder implies that you have a temporary affliction with alcohol. And, I have a program, I have an organization, and my organization's called Alcohol Free Lifestyle, and we help attorneys and doctors and high achievers and entrepreneurs and executives and middle-aged folks to choose an alcohol-free lifestyle, to rewire their mindset around alcohol so they see drinking as the pain and not drinking as the pleasure and the reward and the gift. And we've been able to successfully rewire the mindset of thousands of folks who've come to us who have mistakenly believed that they have some disease or that they're an alcoholic. And we say, actually, let's just play around with this notion that you're not, that you're just experiencing a temporary alcohol use disorder. And within weeks, sometimes days, sometimes 3 months, our stop drinking program's 90 days. That's the average amount of time. Folks can completely shift their identity from I'm an alcoholic to I'm alcohol free and I love it. I am choosing this lifestyle.
That's awesome. Now, we talked a little bit about it being a poison, and I think people will recognize. I mean, there's all the jokes, that it's damaging your liver. Not a joke, actually, but it's the truth. But there, I'm drinking. There's shut up liver. I'll be fine. Um, and then we know it's disrupting our sleep, and we can tell. We wake up the next morning. We don't feel rested. We don't feel solid. Um, there are health costs, a lot more health costs than just the liver and our sleep. I'd like you to go into that, but I'd like you to dive even a little deeper because in the book you got into some costs that I don't think people ever really think about from a perspective of just their life, their performance, their relationships, pretty much everything.
Yeah, I'll talk to the health consequences first, and then I'll go into some more detail about financial cost and then also cost to family life. And by the way, I'm not speaking here to someone whose drinking is so bad that they're waking up in a ditch, getting a DUI, getting arrested. No, I'm talking to someone here who drinks one or two seemingly innocent drinks per night at least. Because even one or two drinks a night is enough to cause some level of brain degeneration, according to a 2022 study out of the UK of 35,000 middle aged adults. They showed that even one seemingly innocent drink per day, just 7 standard drinks a week, was enough to cause gray and white matter degeneration in the brain. Now, that should be frightening.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and then let's talk standard drinks because most people, when they pour themselves a glass of wine, it's not a standard pour. And you go to a restaurant, do you want the standard pour or the heavy pour? And I don't know many people that go with the standard pour.
yeah,
So
that's right.
yeah. Go ahead.
So, drinking even one seemingly innocent drink per night has been linked to all types of cancers: breast cancer in women, throat cancer, causes libido challenges, problems in the bedroom. It's been linked to unwanted, undesirable weight gain. So when you drink alcohol, you're drinking straight calories. So if you're a middle-aged woman or man in particular, let's say you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, your metabolism is already slowing down, and now you're consuming alcohol, you're just literally drinking hundreds and hundreds of unwanted calories. And that shows up in a woman with unwanted shoulder fat, unwanted weight around the hips and the legs. For men, it mostly shows up as a beer belly, and it also shows up in our skin. Now, our body's largest organ is our skin. And when we drink alcohol, we dehydrate the skin. And that shows up as more visible signs of crow's feet around the eyes, bags under the eyes, more noticeable wrinkles. In fact, there was a study also out of the UK in the late 2000 teens, let's say 2017 or 18, I think it was, where they took they took photographs of a group of drinkers and non-drinkers, and they put them all on a table, and then they brought these study participants in, and they said, identify which of these photographs you find most attractive, like which of these people do you find most desirable? And 95% plus of the people chosen were non-drinkers. Now that's fascinating. The headline there is just a warning: drinking does make you better looking. so they're the health consequences as it relates to sleep. I'll just say this: you're better off drinking for breakfast than you are anywhere close to bedtime, because at least then the body has 16 hours to remove the toxins from the body before you go to sleep. The challenge that most people are creating in their lives is that they consume alcohol close to bedtime. That disrupts our sleep. We wake up in the morning feeling just a little bit irritable, a little bit snappy. We're not as present with our kids. We don't make an additional sales call in our business. We get angry at the person who cuts us off in traffic. We get frustrated when we're waiting in line at the supermarket and the person in front of us is taking too long. We're irritable, right? We're stressed. We're anxious. And then that shows up with us craving a drink at 5 or 6 o'clock to try to relieve ourselves of the very stress and anxiety that drinking is creating in the first place. And then we get stuck on a vicious cycle.
Yeah, I see that all the time in talking to clients and in my own life is, you get to 5, 6 o'clock, your day's over, you go home, you get into this almost like habit of, you know, open a bottle of wine, crack open a beer, start your wind down, it's and then but all that's really doing is creating the cycle that's going to start back again tomorrow, rather than waking up rested, having the energy, and doing better, and not being in such a frustrated, angry, agitated state that next evening.
And that frustrated, angry, agitated state creates family challenges. Now, again, let me just preface this by saying you don't have to be waking up in a ditch, getting a DUI, or getting arrested for alcohol to be severely compromising your experience of life. Alcohol consumption is like death by 1,000 cuts. You don't so much notice it daily, maybe not even weekly, but over many months, over many years, and over decades, the death by 1,000 cuts starts to reveal itself. And that has shown up with kids who are either in college or graduating college who don't really want to hang out with you. Like I always say, the definition of success is your children want to spend time with you. They want to call you, they want to converse with you. But if you've been drinking for 3 decades and you're irritable and stressed and anxious, and maybe you've had a divorce, or you're not as confident or as happy as you could have been if you'd lived a life without alcohol, that might be showing up with your kids not wanting to spend time with you. They're drifting, they're distant. It can also show up in marital strain. Maybe some of your listeners have already been divorced, or they know deep down they desire a divorce, but they keep using alcohol to procrastinate on that decision. It's easier just to drink the alcohol to numb the pain of the decisions that we know we have to make, but it's just too hard in the moment to do so. So we keep kicking the can down the road and kicking it down the road and kicking it down the road. And then, suddenly it gets to a point where we go into the doctor's office and the doctor says, you know what? Your blood pressure's very high. You're about 30 pounds overweight. Your cholesterol's high. Your liver enzymes are high. Your sleep is horrendous. And we're not rock bottom, but we feel like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. Napoleon Hill wrote a book called Outwitting the Devil. And in that book, the author talks about the drift of life. And the drift is just meandering along, drifting along, living this life of quiet discontent. And if you've been drinking for 2-3 decades, and maybe you've been able to stop for a little while, but mostly you've been drinking, I would submit you probably feel like the drift has got you.
Yeah. Now, what was interesting is that your program really, I want to say it's empowering. You're not a victim if you don't choose to be a victim. And so there's a lot of self-talk that you're doing. And you went into something that I think was really, really interesting because, Robert Cialdini did his book Influence. And one of the things he talks about in the book is how just a simple giving someone a reason, a because, will make them more compliant. He talked about a copier machine in the book of just asking to get in front of someone in line. Kind of a dated example, but nonetheless, when you give someone a reason why, they're much more likely to comply. And so you were into self-talk, and you got to talking about how if you will say to yourself, I'm choosing to be alcohol free, and then basically the word because. Can you talk a little bit about how that self-talk can be effective? Because I thought it was fascinating because I'm like, I've always read this as a way to influence others, and now you're presenting it as it'll also work on ourselves.
There's a lot of study of neuroscience which shows when we tell ourselves what not to do, we end up doing that very thing. So, for example, just say we're skiing down a mountain. The internal dialogue in our mind is don't steer towards the trees, don't fall over. And then we invariably steer towards the trees and fall over, even though we told ourselves not to do that. And that's because there's a bundle of nerves in the brain called the reticular activating system. And it focuses on what we are thinking about. And the brain and that RAS doesn't understand a negative command. So when you say don't do something, it only hears the something and you end up doing that thing you don't want to do. Now, that's what I submit AA does, Rehab does, being sober, sobriety does. You're trying to avoid something. You're trying to say no to something. You're saying, no, I can't drink. I need to be sober. I have to quit. And of course, we're just focusing on the alcohol. Whereas over here, based on what we learned from Cialdini, who wrote the book Influence, and what we've learned about positive psychology, when we tell the brain what to do, not what not to do, but tell it what to do, it's a heck of a lot easier and simpler for the brain to achieve that very thing, which is why at our organization, Alcohol Free Lifestyle, we invite people to choose an alcohol-free lifestyle. We invite them to choose to order soda, water, ice, and a piece of lime at the bar. We invite them to choose a great night's sleep and good nutrition. So that's a heck of a lot easier. And then to your point about the because, we put in the word because, and then we include our whys. So I choose an alcohol-free lifestyle because I love being present with my children. I choose to be alcohol-free because I love the feeling of waking up in the morning with clarity and energy after a great night's sleep. I'm choosing soda, water, ice, and a piece of lime tonight because I can't wait to sleep great and tomorrow morning go for a walk and get some sunlight on my face. I'm choosing this lifestyle here because I know I feel much more present with my husband or my wife, or I'm more productive in my business. And so when we change our verbiage from I need to stop, I have to quit, I'm sober, to I get to choose these alcohol-free drinks, I get to sleep well, I get to be present, then the RAS can focus in on that thing and it becomes so much simpler to achieve our goals.
Yeah. And you've got some menus in the book, so they get to try those too. Uh,
Yeah, we've got lots of mocktail recipes towards the end of the book. Yeah, so if you're struggling to find delicious alternatives to attractively packaged poison, there's at least 4 or 5 pages at the end of the book there with some great recipes for you.
Now, one of the things when a lot of people, particularly I would say at a high level, so you probably see this a lot, but even across the board, someone wants to stop doing something. They immediately go at it with the white knuckles of, okay, just don't, like you said, don't do it, don't do it. And they miss a very important component that you brought up in the book. And I think it's a big part of your program, and that's accountability. Can you explain why accountability is a slightly better approach than white knuckling this thing?
Yeah. Most people's attempts to stop drinking involve brute willpower, white knuckling it, deprivation. In fact, some folks probably have tried dry January, sober October, 30-day challenge. Now, the challenge with those challenges is that when you're going into those 30-day challenges, you're depriving yourself of something that you would probably ordinarily choose. So congratulations, you've got to 30 days, depriving yourself of alcohol. And what do you do on day 30? You celebrate with a drink. What happens next? The slippery slope gets you, and you find yourself returning to the same level of drinking that motivated you to try to stop drinking on a 30-day challenge in the first place, right? So it's not a long-term effective solution to drinking. Short-term, fine, okay. Long-term, ineffective. So what we're trying to do here is to rewire the mindset in a way where we look at being alcohol free as the gift and the reward and the pleasure, and we look at drinking any amount of alcohol, even one seemingly innocent drink a night, as the pain and the struggle and the compromised lifestyle. I call it the flipperoonie. We're just flipping it around. We're flipping the narrative. And when we do that, all of a sudden our choices become a lot simpler. And I don't know about you, Alan, but I want a simple life. I don't want a complex life. Complexity is the enemy of execution. So I like to keep it simple, stupid. And keeping it simple is I'm choosing this lifestyle. I identify being alcohol free with pleasure and joy and energy and clarity and focus. And I identify drinking alcohol as compromising all of those things. Would you remind me of the final part of your
Well, it
question?
was about accountability
Yeah,
because,
thank you. Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I was trying to recall what the question was regarding that. Here's the thing with accountability, you can get accountability at an AA meeting, but it's not like-minded accountability. Because if you're a 40, 50, 60 something and you're wanting to stop drinking and you don't believe you're an alcoholic and you go to an AA meeting, you may find yourself sitting next to a 17-year-old meth addict who's holding up a gas station and he's chain smoking and looking at the floor. And while you want the best for that person, you can't relate to that person because you're a middle-aged, articulate, well-educated person who's just struggling temporarily with your drinking, right? So that accountability is ineffective for you. But like-minded accountability, okay, like-minded accountability is you get into a group of like-minded people who are also middle-aged, 40s, 50s, 60s, married, children in college, well-educated. Maybe you run a business, maybe you're an attorney, you're a doctor, you're an investor, you're a retiree, similar background, and they're also struggling with alcohol. Now you get into that group, and that group supports you and you support them. What that does is it creates allies, it creates camaraderie, and that generates accountability, like-minded accountability. And that ultimately supports the breakthrough that you desire. There was a book by Charles C. Duhigg called The Power of Habit. And in that book, he said, change becomes probable when you put a like-minded group of people into a community with a common goal. So in that sense, what you want to do if you are a middle-aged entrepreneur, executive, or retiree, etc., is try to stop drinking alcohol in a group of other middle-aged doctors, attorneys, investors, etc. And that's what we try to curate, certainly in our Project 90 Stop Drinking process, which I write about in the book. And because there's that like-minded accountability, that ultimately leads to the breakthrough as it relates to alcohol.
Yeah, and there's just a general understanding of the structure of what this person's going through. So the conversations are deeper, they're better. They're not that high level of just don't do it.
Yeah, because now you can have conversations around the strain in your marriage or how to talk to your children. You can learn skills on how to be a conscious communicator. You can have conversations about business. You can have conversations about life. You get to go deeper and have more meaningful correspondence. And that's what keeps people motivated. But if you go into a 30-day challenge with people from all over the world, they have a common goal, which is to stop drinking, but you can't relate to them because they're not your people. At least many of them, most of them won't be your people. And then you're mixing with people where they are getting a DUI or they are holding up a gas station or they are getting arrested. And again, I've said it before, but of course we want the best for them. But do you really want to hang out with those people? Are you going to be motivated to get the breakthrough you want being surrounded by those people? I would submit no.
Yeah, and I think the other side of it is after you've adopted the alcohol free lifestyle, is that someone you're still going to want to hang out with and
Yeah.
be relational to, and probably not, because again, if there's nothing else, there's
Mm.
no reason beyond the initial level of accomplishing the task.
I always say to men and women, if you want to get six-pack abs, for example, if you're a man, you want a six-pack abs. And if you're a woman, if you want to feel healthy and get mobility, go and hang out with a bunch of guys who've got six-pack abs for 90 days and go and hang out with a bunch of women who've got energy and clarity and, are moving and loving life for 90 days. You will literally learn by osmosis. You will start taking on their behaviors and you will get the six-pack abs if you're a man, and you will lose the unwanted body weight if you're a woman, and feel energetic and clarity. So it's getting into the right environment. And from what we understand about the study of epigenetics, and I write about epigenetics in the book, we can't change our genetic code. We can't change our genetic sequence, but we can change the expression of our genes through lifestyle and environment. And what that means for the listener is that even if you are experiencing an alcohol use disorder right now, simply by getting into a healthy environment and getting into a group of like minded people who are healthy and health conscious, your genetic expression will change and you will start to have a genetic expression of health and vitality and progress and momentum, as opposed to if you stay stuck in the norm or you get stuck in the drift, as Napoleon Hill writes about in his book, Outwitting the Devil, where your genetic expression just stays the same, which is not great.
Yeah. And I'd like to take that, when you talk about epigenetics, if you're listening and you want to have kids, even if you're the guy, they tell women not to drink while they're pregnant, but if you're the guy thinking about having kids, epigenetics is an important component of this. So I'd encourage you to get James' book and at least read that section. If you don't read anything else, you are signaling and creating your kids, and it's not just the genes you pass on. There's a lot more to it than that, and the drinking is a part of all that. Now, James, in the book, you get into the quick start action plan. Can you kind of walk us through what that is and how someone can get started while they're waiting for your book to be delivered?
James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits, and in that book, he talks about the importance of removing the visual cues of things that you don't want. So I invited James Clear to come and coach our clients in our 90-day stop drinking program, and he very graciously came and gave a talk in our 90-day stop drinking process. And what he said to our clients was remove alcohol from the home and replace the alcohol with visual signs of health and vitality. So, for example, go into your fridge, go into your cabinet, remove the alcohol, throw out the bottle openers, throw out the wine glasses, and instead replace them with mason jars where when you see the mason jars, these glass mason jars, you fill them with water and then you strategically place them around your home. And then each time as you're walking through your home, you see the mason jar, it makes you think about drinking water. You then pour yourself some water and you drink the water. Buying a bouquet of flowers for your home, even if you consider yourself a very alpha male man, just a bouquet of flowers sitting on a kitchen table or a dining room table is a symbol for health and vitality and vibrance and scent. I remember when I was quitting alcohol, I followed this advice and I bought a bouquet of flowers and I thought, this is not a very manly thing to do, buying myself flowers. But it actually had the effect because I would leave the home, I'd come back, I'd open the door, and there were a bouquet of flowers sitting on the living room table. And then I go, oh, look at those flowers. Aren't they lovely? And it became a symbol for my body and for my life. And I found myself making healthier choices simply because I saw a bouquet of flowers each day. It was a fascinating thing. In fact, there's a study that shows that hospital patients are discharged from hospital earlier if they have a plant or flowers next to their bedside table than those who don't. Just the view of health and vitality and this symbol of life is enough for us to feel healthier and make healthier choices. So that's one thing that we can do. The other thing is, again, watch the verbiage. So instead of saying, I'm going to quit, I've got to stop, changing the verbiage to, I'm only going to drink soda water, ice, and a piece of lime. I would encourage you to buy some alcohol-free drinks. I'm an investor in an alcohol-free company called Groovy out of Denver, Colorado. I like them. They've got some great alcohol-free drinks on the market. Get some flavored soda waters, not the ones with sugar in it, but soda
Yeah.
water, not soda, but soda water.
Yeah.
And fill your fridge with that. So when you go and open the fridge, instead of seeing beer bottles and wine bottles, you see these very colorful flavored soda waters. And then
Yeah.
and then get into a group of like-minded people and start making healthier habits your goal. And just step by step, you will start to gravitate away from alcohol and gravitate towards people and situations where either alcohol is not present or it's not necessary for social engagement.
Yeah. I invested in a soda stream, not to sell the, I have no association with the company, but I bought a soda stream. And what I found was that I would definitely drink more water because I had the soda stream, it's quick, get a liter of it, go, and then just drop a couple squeezes of lemon or lime or grapefruit. And it's so much nicer to look in the fridge and have one of those sitting there. Um, it again, and I know I'm getting a lot more water and hydrating very well because that's what I drink primarily now.
Yeah, the visual cue of the soda stream actually shows up with you consuming more water, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's
I
right
mean,
here on my desk.
yeah, I mean, I own a sleep company. You referenced that, the blue blockers, at the beginning of our conversation here, and I produce these blue blockers called Swannies from my sleep company, Swanwick Sleep. And I have two pairs of the orange lensed blue blockers on my bedside table. And just seeing the blue blockers there inspires me to put them on my face every night, thereby blocking the blue light and helping my body prepare for sleep. Likewise, down in the kitchen of my family home, I have a little supplement desk area, little portion where my wife kind of keeps it nice and tidy for me. And I have some fish oil, and I've got some, other little supplements that I take, and some protein powder, and vitamin C, and zinc. And when I walk down in the morning, I see it. I can't avoid it. It's right there. And so I go, oh, okay, I'm going to take my supplements, and I'm going to start taking these healthy habits. So, yeah, as it relates to alcohol, remove alcohol from the home and replace it with healthy alternatives.
Excellent. So, James, I define wellness as being the healthiest, fittest, and happiest you can be. What are three strategies or tactics to get and stay well?
First thing is to practice a life of appreciation, not expectation. And all that means is really develop a systematic gratitude practice. There's a lot of studies that show that you can reduce cravings for anything by about 37 to 40% simply by writing down things that you're grateful for each day. That is astounding. I know it sounds woo woo, but it's been shown repeatedly. If we keep telling ourselves what we're grateful for. Wow, I'm so grateful that I get to sleep in this bed tonight. Wow, I love this water that I'm drinking because it fuels my body. Wow, I really loved that intentional conversation I had with my husband or wife or child this afternoon. And we just keep reinforcing all of that gratitude. Stress and anxiety tends to fall away, therefore the cravings fall away. So first thing is practice a life of appreciation, not expectation. Second thing I would say is assume the identity of a professional sleeper. And by that, I mean learn everything you can learn about how to have a great night's sleep, including wearing a pair of blue blockers. Shameless plug for my company there. But even if you don't use blue blockers from my company, invest in a high quality pair, please, because blocking artificial light at night can really improve your sleep. But more than that, just learning all of the skill sets around being a great sleeper, because that will have you waking up feeling so much better about life, which will ultimately show up in healthier choices, which will give you more energy, clarity, help you lose weight, be less irritable, less stressed, less anxious. And then the third thing I would say is ABL, always be learning. There's a study out of the American Retirees Association which shows that 50% of all adults over the age of 40 never learn anything new in terms of formal education. They hit 40, that's it. They don't study a course, they don't listen to a podcast, they don't go and do another course or a program somewhere. That should be frightening, I think, because that has been linked to reducing people's cognitive abilities. In fact, there was a study out of the University of California in Riverside which showed where they took a group of 60 to 80-year-olds and they gave them 4 classes a week for 90 days to go and learn something new. And in those 90 days, they improved their cognitive abilities to that of a middle-aged person between 40 and 60. So that's pretty amazing. And just anecdotally, my late grandmother, her name was Hazel Swanwick. She got to 103, and she was as sharp as a tack right to her final days. And I'm convinced, anecdotally, that it was because she did a crossword every day from the local newspaper for about 75 years.
That's cool. Yeah, and I'm fortunate enough to have learned from your book, Clear. So thank you for that. Um, if someone wanted to learn more about you, James, what you're doing, your program, your book, and the Swannies, where would you like for me to send them?
Thank you. Yeah, so the book Clear is available online wherever books are sold. You can find it on Amazon, you can find it at Barnes and Noble, but you can also go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/clear, and there'll be some options there for you to get the hard copy, soft cover book, and also the audio version. If you'd like to learn about our flagship 90-day stop drinking process, you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90. And then I'm quite engaged on social media or on Instagram, if indeed you are on Instagram. And I do a lot of videos there showing people how to reduce or stop drinking alcohol. And that's just my Instagram handle, which is at James Swanwick.
All right. Well, thank you, James, for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you for having me, Allan.
If you enjoyed today's show, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you would, please leave us a rating and review on your podcast player of choice. It really does make a difference in how people find the show, decide they want to do the show. So please, it takes just a second. Leave us a rating and or review on your podcast player of choice. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we meet Dr. Mark Sherwood and discuss his book, Quest for Wellness, a practical and personal wellness plan for optimal health in your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.